Parasol stars the story of Bubble Bobble 3, is the third entry in the series behind 1986's Bubble Bobble and 1987's Rainbow Islands. In this game, you'll take on the role of the human versions of Bub and Bob, named Bubby and Bobby, and you'll use your parasol to eliminate all the enemies on screen, similar to the previous games in the franchise. Now, thanks to In Games, this is getting a re-release on modern platforms with some modern features. This is not a remake, but is just an updated port of the original game. So thanks to the publisher for the review copy so I can make this video on it. The first thing I want to do is take a look at the modern features and the settings that they've added to this release, because retro re-releases have become increasingly common. And one thing that is pretty important is to have plenty of different customization, not only for the visuals, but also having save states, load states, sometimes rewind, and all those things that make these games more accessible. Being an arcade-style game, this is pretty difficult. So to make this as accessible as possible to anybody that wants to play it, having these features is a must. And thankfully, they're all here. There's a ton of different customization options for the visuals. Some I don't fully understand why they're there, because I don't know that anybody would use them. There's plenty of different like color palettes. You could play the game in black and white. Then you have a CRT filter, an arcade filter. There's different settings to kind of smooth out the visuals or keep that pixelated look. There's a lot to tinker with to make this kind of suit what you're looking for visually, to make it as visually pleasing as possible for you. They do have load and save states, they have rewind, and they even have fast forward, which is a little bit weird. And again, it's cool that it's there, but I don't really know when you would use that. If you really valued your time and you wanted to speed it up a little bit, I don't know. I don't know when you'd use fast forward, but it's cool that it's there. So the settings menu does have a plethora of things for you to kind of tinker with and check out. And it's great that this is all here. This should be the bare minimum, should be the save states and load states, the rewind, and some visual customization. So they get an A+ from me for having these all here. One thing that they're missing that I would have loved to see, and I always appreciate when a retro re-release has this, is just a scan of the manual. I always enjoyed when I would buy a physical game when I was a kid, just kind of pouring through the manual, and I don't think that's a lot to ask for them to scan the manual in so that you can kind of flip through it. Just a personal thing, not a deal breaker, but something I would have liked to see. Now, from a gameplay perspective, there's plenty of different ways to play this. There's a challenge mode, which if you play, you basically get 1 quarter, and you get as far as you can, and then you post your score to online leaderboards. And there's no rewinding, nothing like that. So it's the authentic arcade-style experience. So that's awesome for people that maybe are pros at this game and want to challenge themselves and see how they stack up against other players. There's also more casual modes and things like that with varying amounts of credits and the rewind feature. That way, pretty much anybody could get through to the end of this game. And it's a fairly long game with 8 different worlds. At least for an arcade-style game, it's fairly long. And then from a gameplay perspective, it's similar to the previous Bubble Bobble titles. You're not a little dinosaur that's going to spit bubbles and then you pop them and eliminate the enemies. But there are lots of water droplets, and you can grab those and you throw them at your enemy. And then you can grab enemies when they're stunned and you can fling them too. And they turn into fruits, which you collect for points, which will then get you more 1-ups. And clearing all the enemies on the screen will progress you to the next. Now, this does play like an arcade game. And initially, I did think that it was an arcade game. But this was not actually. This was a console game that they just themed like the previous Bubble Bobble titles. This gameplay you're seeing here is all early gameplay. I didn't use the rewind feature. I played it pretty authentically, and I kind of needed to figure out what was going on because there are some intricacies to its gameplay, and it's more complicated in my opinion than Bubble Bobble. Since you have to hit enemies with your umbrella, sometimes there's bigger enemies that you have to throw smaller enemies into, and then they'll get stunned, and then you can grab them and fling them. There's a lot of things like that. But what you could do is you can use your parasol to kind of float slowly, so you can use it for a little bit of the platforming. And also, if you hold the button, you can gather up multiple water droplets, and they become one big, powerful droplet. There's also different elemental droplets you can collect and use on your enemies. But the bulk of the gameplay is simple. It's just clear the screen, collect all the fruit, go to the next, then the next, then the next, and then you'll be greeted with a boss at the end of each of the worlds. As somebody that has never played this third entry in the Bubble Bobble series, and I've honestly never even played the second, the only one that I'm familiar with is the original, and mainly the NES version. I think I have played the arcade, but the NES version is really the one that I have the fondest of memories with, playing it with a friend, getting the best ending, which I actually do have a video up on my channel from really long ago of us getting the true ending, which you needed 2 players for. This one does have co-op if you have somebody to play with, and honestly, I think that's probably the ideal way to play. At least that is for me. These types of games, to me, are always more fun in co-op, so I wish I had somebody to play with, but unfortunately, I only played the single player. But the option is there if you do have somebody to play with. I found Parasol Stars to be really fun, and I don't think you necessarily need to be a Bubble Bobble fan or have played this back when it released in 1991 or even after that to enjoy what's here. The package is pretty complete in my opinion, with the rewinding, save states, and load states so you could pick up where you left off. If you want to be a pro Parasol Stars player, there's the leaderboards you can try and, top your fellow players on. And if you're really bad at these types of games and maybe it looks fun to you, but you're like, I don't even know if the rewind feature will help me, they do even have some cheats. There's cheats. Everybody can beat this game. Everybody can enjoy this game. It's highly accessible. So for all these reasons, I recommend playing it. I had a lot of fun with it, truly. And I'm going to play it more, and I'm probably going to use the rewind feature to get to the end, and I'm not ashamed to say that. I wasn't very good at this. I think playing it a second time, I'll be better than I was the first time because I understand it a little bit better. There's some levels that I couldn't quite wrap my head around when I got to them initially, and just kind of understanding the mechanics and the enemies and throwing them and all that sort of stuff and figuring it all out is part of the fun. So Parasol Stars, the story of Bubble Bobble 3, gets a recommendation from me. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it informative. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe, and I hope to see you on my next video. But until then, have a good one.